Well, it always is awkward when I pull out the webcam. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in the last full 2024 election prediction I did was all the way back on April 1st, I want to say. And at that point, there was some sentiment around Biden possibly trending in some of these states. It never got to the point where I thought Biden was actually leading in terms of the election, but we're going to take a look at the full prediction here. This is a totally realistic prediction. Obviously, I'm going to try and not be biased when I do it. This is based off of a number of underlying factors along with recent polling. Everything gets taken into account when it comes to this. And obviously, we are going to give Biden the main states, the obvious states, Colorado. The interesting thing with Colorado, it gained an electoral vote, apparently because a lot of liberals are moving to the state. So I know people were like, well, maybe Trump possibly might have a chance in Colorado. Very likely it is not going to happen. Hawaii as well. Moving on to Trump, some of his locks. Obviously, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with me on a lot of these. You do have most of Nebraska. The second district is obviously the important potential swing state. And there was one poll that came out of the second district because Trump won this district in 2016. He lost it in 2020, and he lost it kind of by a comfortable margin. It was like a 7-point loss, but it's obviously a smaller population because of the way they do the voting in Nebraska. I just hate it. I think it should be winner take all in both Nebraska and Maine. That needs to be solved, but we'll see. This is right now a swing state. I believe there's another district that might be a little bit of a swing state, but I would expect Trump to win it anyways. Moving on to Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, obviously all going to be Trump states. Iowa at this point, the last time it was a swing state, you could argue was 2016. You do have Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana. I don't really have to explain any of these. Indiana, it always normally gets called first. I'll talk about Ohio a little bit. Pretty crazy that it's conservative at this point. Same thing with Florida. Maybe they might argue, well, there could be a catastrophic scenario where Trump loses Florida, but at this point, it's almost like the Democrats have given up when it comes to the state of Florida. You do have Biden winning Illinois. New Hampshire, you can argue it's a swing state. It just feels like a Democrat type state to me, New Hampshire does. And I know Biden's approval rating is terrible. We're going to come back to that. All these other states, New Jersey, where Trump just did his big rally. There was one poll that had Trump only down 6. I think there was another recent poll that came out that had him down like 12 or 13. I just can't see Trump winning New Jersey, man. Obviously, Delaware, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maryland, District of Columbia, probably a 90-point win for Biden there. I'm not kidding. And then you do have more Trump states, South Carolina, North Carolina. Do I give it to Trump as a lock? I can't say it's a lock just yet. I can say West Virginia is a lock. And I believe that is all of them, also Alaska. And then also I'm going to give Biden New Mexico. I don't see Trump winning New Mexico. I understand the polling sentiment. I get it. But right now, I would say these could be potentially classified. Also give Biden New York. These could potentially be classified as the main swing states. Trump at 218, Biden at 195. Yes, Minnesota and Virginia, you could argue heavily leaning towards Biden, but if you actually take a look at some of the polling on some of these states like a Minnesota, it's very close. It's limited. It surprises me that this would be such limited in terms of the polling. Just one poll in the year 2024 with Biden +2. Now look, if we get more polls that come out and it's Biden +7, +8, then I'll say, yeah, Biden's going to win that state. I get it. But this was a state that Trump thought he could win in 2016. He nearly did. Yes, he lost it badly in 2020 after the riots and everything. They burned down Minneapolis, and then they rewarded the Democrats after BLM and the whole Democrat charade burned down their own city, and they got rewarded for it. That's how dumb these people are. But so Minnesota, I would say at this point, you do have to lean it to Biden, but to me, it's slight lean to Biden. There's just not enough polling in the state for me to say, yeah, Trump's going to win it. Yes, you could argue maybe off of recent factors with Trump and his approval rating being actually better than Biden, he could have a chance to win Minnesota. I think he does, but I can't give it to him. Virginia would be the main other one. The argument here, see, they have Virginia going to Biden, or like is a pretty heavy Biden lean. You get a recent poll. Really, it wasn't recent. We need more polling. This is surprising that these states seemingly are close, but there's no actual polling that's come out about. I hope that there was no sound on there, but there's no actual polling. So you can see they do have Minnesota as a toss-up. They've got Virginia going to Biden. And again, I'm going to give Virginia to Biden as a slight lean. We understand it. You move on to a state like, and so these would be like the traditional swing states. This is what they want you to say. Well, these are the traditional ones of the year 2024. So look at this, 218 to 218. You do have Nevada. Now, we've got some major polling out of Nevada, and we just have a major Trump lead. Yes, you could say Emerson, Trump only +1. This is a lot of data coming together. I mean, look at this. This is at least a 4 or 5 point win for Trump, and that would actually be underestimating Trump. Even if you want to argue the 13-point lead for Trump's an outlier, maybe he's not up by 13, maybe it was really a 7 or 8 point lead. It's still an overwhelming sentiment for Trump. Normally they have and you want to do the 5-way because people say, well, if RFK's in it, Trump looks even better. And that's normally what we get with states like that. Trump improves a little bit. So Nevada at this point, I don't know. The only thing you can say is, oh, but Trump with all of his legal issues, something's going to happen. Like, you have to predict it. Right now, based off of all the polling, I'd say Nevada, pretty favorite, pretty strong lean to Donald Trump. You move on to a state like Arizona, it's a very similar story. Donald Trump sitting +5 right now. Here's the history. Biden was sitting +5. Trump has flipped it 10 points in overall polling average. 2016, Hillary was up by 3.5. And Trump is just dominating in the polls. So obviously, you look at a state like Arizona, even with the abortion cope, it's like, oh, we suck at leading. Biden's the worst president in history, but we're going to fearmonger with abortion so they'll vote for us. American people are smarter than that. They look past it. And that's why Trump is going to win, I would expect, Arizona at this point, unless Biden's approval rating somehow improves significantly. Moving on to Georgia, obviously a state I did not expect Joe Biden to win in 2020. Supposedly he did. Moving on to 2024, you do have Donald Trump with a commanding lead. I mean, this is just, it's not even close in Georgia either. And you move to the 5-way because, technically it's more accurate because these people are going to be in the race. They're going to have to get Cornel West out of the race somehow. Like, if you look at it right now, Biden is already struggling so badly. And listen, the thing with Real Clear Politics, even if I turn on ad blocker, it's just going to, once I refresh the page, it's going to go off again. But what was I saying about, oh yeah, they're going to have to get rid of Cornel West. Cornel West is just leeching off of the Biden voters. And now it's only going to get worse because all these pro-Palestine people, they're not going to vote for Biden. They're going to cling to West, and it's going to kill Biden's chances. Biden is already up against it as it is with his approval rating being so bad. If West and maybe even Stein take more votes away from him, remember the 2016 vote? Well, Jill Stein won Trump the election. I don't believe that at all. I think Trump would have won anyways, but they had to cope with it. That was the whole Russian gate, Jill Stein, the third party winning. But so yeah, you take a look at a state like Georgia. It's obviously going to go to Trump, at least right now. We'll see what happens. But there is that one. Nebraska's 2nd district. Can we actually get polling on Nebraska's 2nd district? Actually, I think it will go to the polls. No. There is one. I'm not going to be able to find it. Obviously, the statewide, Trump's going to win the state. It's interesting the state shifted that much, 7 points to the Democrats. It's interesting. But when it comes to the district, it could end up being extremely valuable if Biden runs the table on these 3 Rust Belt states. So the 2nd district, it's hard for me to pick right. It's 1 electoral vote. Let's not throw a fit. We'll go ahead and give it to Biden very slightly. You want to be impartial and things like that. Moving on to North Carolina. North Carolina, state that Trump won 2020 and 2016. And the polling, Bloomberg coming out, Trump +10. Emerson says Trump +5. And so, yes, this is another poll that shows a significant, I would say at least 4 or 5 point Trump victory. In 2020, the poll's pretty accurate, had Trump +0.3. He won by about 1.5 points, I think. 2016, they had Hillary +3.5. That's really when they didn't know how to pull Trump supporters. And now if you're a Democrat, you could try and cope and say, well, now they're overdoing it. They're going too far in the opposite direction. in terms of the polls with Trump. And then they reference 2022. Guys, 2022, the actual aggregate overall generic vote in terms of the polls versus the final results, it was very close. I think it was 0.5 off. Republicans were supposed to win the overall popular vote by like 2.8, and they won by 2.3. The issue is, the reason it's kind of seen as a big negative for conservatives is because the way the vote was split in between the races, it was the worst possible scenario. So overall, the aggregate, it was like the opposite of what happens during a general election. Because the general elections nowadays, the Democrats are normally always going to win the popular vote, but they could still lose the election. Like if Biden wins the popular vote by a point, I would fully expect him to lose the election. He won the popular vote by 4.5 points in 2020 and very easily could have lost the election. So it's interesting to think about that. I don't think the polls were necessarily horribly wrong in terms of the overall sentiment. Republicans plus 2.5, it was just spread out in the worst way possible. But that's what they're clinging to. Oh, they got the polls wrong in 2022, so they're going to be wrong in 2024. They are overestimating Republicans. You know, when you talk about a general election with Trump involved, it's different than the midterms. So a state like North Carolina, you know, we'll do our due diligence, we'll go over it, but it's a state I expect Trump to win by about 4 or 5 points, at least right now. So you look at the math, Trump is already at 268. He only needs one more. I know there's one district in Maine that Republicans for sure are going to win. Oh, this is it. It's Maine's 2nd district. Well, Trump was plus 10, plus 7. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and give Trump Maine's 2nd district here. And then there also is a district in Maine, I know, that Biden is probably a lock to win. I think it's the 1st district. Yeah, plus 22. You're not coming back from that. So we'll give Biden the 1st district. I don't know why they do it. Actually, we're going to make that dark. Well, there we go. And then you also do have, I guess, the rest of the state for Maine. It's annoying that they do this. The rest of the state, 2 votes. Yeah, Hillary was plus 3. Biden is plus 9. I could see Trump winning this type. Look at this recent polling. Trump plus 6. This is very hard to predict right now. There's really been no other polling. Biden plus 1, Biden plus 11. It's just, you flip a coin on it. It would be huge. If Trump won this, the election's over. Now the election's over. And by the way, you can actually look at that district. Let's take a look at this. Where was that poll? See, Real Clear Politics does this sometimes where you look, Trump wins it by 2, Biden wins it by 7. 2016 versus 2020. So it shifted by about 8 points, 9 points maybe, which I would expect it to shift back the way Biden's approval rating is and what we're seeing out of other polls. I just don't know by how much. So I guess I'll leave it on Biden. But the other thing I was saying, New Hampshire, I actually do want to look at the polls that are coming out of New Hampshire. It's technically a swing state. It just feels like a left-leaning state to me. And where is New Hampshire? There it is. Yeah, they have Biden plus 8. Yeah, I can agree with that, honestly. Really no recent polling, though. Biden might only win it by 2 or 3. Small population. And then when it comes to, at this point, Trump has already won. He's at 270. And then you have the 3 behemoths. So this is actually best case scenario for Trump, not needing any of these really close and really annoying Rust Belt states that are very likely going to be decided by a point, maybe 2 points. Now, I say that, and I'm kind of being nice to Biden when I say it, because if you look at the polling 2020, 2016 versus 2024, the polling in 2016 and 2020 would suggest that based on recent polling we've seen in 2024, Trump would actually win all of these states by about 4 or 5 points because they underestimated Trump so badly. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. You take a look at a state like Michigan, Trump plus 8. Look at this. Hillary was plus 10. Trump ended up winning. Biden was plus 6. So Trump has turned this state, May 14th, 2020, Trump has turned this state by about 7 points in terms of overall polling. And so that would suggest if they continue to underestimate Trump, because obviously Biden did not win by 6 points. He won by, less than a point maybe in Michigan. All these states were ridiculously close. The polls underestimated Trump by about 11, 12 points in 2016. So those numbers would suggest Trump is actually up by about 4 or 5 points in Michigan. But you could also say, well, the polls have gotten better with technology. They're more accurately sampling Trump supporters. Okay, that's fine. These states are going to be really close anyways. I would say, how would I split it right now? I know with Milwaukee, I get it, but I do like Wisconsin to go conservative. It's hard with any of these states. They're going to be very close. Well, Wisconsin, the aggregate got destroyed by Quinnipiac. Yeah, I mean, Quinnipiac had I don't know how I don't even want to, it's ridiculous, but Trump's sitting 0.6. It's really like plus point, I would say Trump's like plus 2 or 3 if you take away Quinnipiac. So I would give Trump Wisconsin, and then you look at a state like Pennsylvania, that's the big one with 19 electoral votes, people saying Pennsylvania the most important state. This one, there is a little bit more agreement on. So just to, make it realistic, we are going to give Trump Pennsylvania, and we will be giving Biden the state of Michigan. And so that would be the overall vote. And that's kind of being nice to Biden at this point when you think about it. You could make an argument that no, Biden leads in Maine. He's going to win Maine. It's very close. Either way, as long as Trump picks off one of these states, Trump has really created so many different paths for himself by potentially taking both Arizona and Nevada. That's plus 17 in terms of electoral votes. That means Biden's losing 17. It's a 34-point electoral vote swing out west. So that's why even if you have a catastrophic situation with Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the Big Ten states, you could still potentially win. This district could be huge. I know there was a big push to possibly try and make Nebraska winner take all in that case. I mean, if you made right now Nebraska and Maine winner take all, I think Trump could win Maine. Biden most certainly cannot win Nebraska. But if Biden wins Maine, that's fine. I just want every state to be winner take all. And when it comes to Minnesota and it comes to Virginia, there's just not enough polling based on history. I mean, Biden won Virginia if he had won Virginia by like 2 or 3 points in 2020, I'd be like, okay, I could predict this for Trump now. But it was a bigger margin. They called Virginia like right as the polls closed. It was a pretty decisive victory. And Minnesota was as well versus 2016. But this would kind of be what the map is looking like, I would say. And this is really kind of just not underestimating Trump, but trying to be conservative. Trump at 299 here, not getting to 300. Again, there's things you could change, but I do think this could be a relatively realistic scenario. And then you look at Biden's approval rating, which is obviously just historic. So Biden in 39.5, under 40%. Trump was 6 points better than Biden. That was with 90% of the mainstream media against Trump. And he's still 6 points better than Biden during the early stages of the pandemic in May. Now, yes, Trump's approval rating tanked because the economy got shut down. It's really a lose-lose for Trump. Do you shut the economy down? Do you leave it open? They'll fearmonger. They'll say you're killing people. There's really nothing you can do that would have been positive during that time early in the pandemic because we didn't know how dangerous the disease actually was because China was lying about all their numbers. But you can see Obama about 9 points better than Biden. And Bush, Bush with the same approval rating as Trump. But then you take a look at Biden on some of these issues. It's just so bad. The economy is sitting at minus 19. Foreign policy is sitting at minus 25. Inflation, which is really 19%, not 3%, is sitting at minus 29. Crime. How about the narrative that, this is what I don't understand. The narrative that Democrats are trying to say, oh, there's less crime. Well, yes, you're letting people steal stuff. Of course, there's going to be less crime on paper. Like, isn't that the whole Democrat thing where it's like, we have to let people that aren't as privileged as us just steal and go into people's houses? And isn't that what they push for? So why would they brag about less crime? Are they bragging about having a police state? See, it's just contradictions. And then the immigration, oh my God. I'm surprised it's not worse. Minus 29 on the immigration. And it's not going to get better. I've talked about the immigration. There's nothing they can really do. The Hamas situation, it's a lose-lose. Minus 30. It's a lose-lose. And then direction of the country, to be fair to Biden, it's always going to be really negative. I know during the Trump administration, the direction of country, I actually think it might have been decent for a short time. Can we see the Trump direction of country data? I don't think we can. But this is always normally really bad. It's minus 42. And then, oh, this is good. Favorability of U.S. leaders. So Biden is sitting right now overall. See, this is not, oh, okay, this is not approval rating. Minus 14 just in terms of likability. Trump is sitting minus 10. So Trump about 3 points better in terms of likability than Biden. And everyone references somehow Kamala Harris is more unlikable than Biden. Well, this is why. Yes, she gets less polling, but she's sitting minus 16. Biden is only minus 14. That's why they can't push Biden out. It's very rare to have a vice president, especially when the president has such a bad approval rating, be even worse. So you put Kamala Harris in, you lose the incumbent, she would get destroyed. There's no way you can go with Kamala Harris because there are a lot of people that are coming out and saying Biden needs to be replaced. We'll see what ends up happening with that. Let's see if we can go through any. I guess maybe not. I thought there were other things I could go through really quickly. I'm kind of going off here. Is there anything else? I want to see Trump direction of country from 2016 to 2020. This is actually, we'll take a look at the popular vote. So yeah, the popular vote, these are great numbers for Trump, sitting overall plus 1.2. You look at 2020 on this date, Trump swung it by 5 points. 2016, Hillary was up by 5.7, which technically wasn't terribly wrong. She ended up winning the popular vote by about 3.5, but obviously the popular vote is not very meaningful. I thought there might have, yeah, so this is the other thing that happened. They took out the Trump plus 12, I guess you could call it outlier by Rasmussen, but then they leave in Quinnipiac. I mean, come on. It's just, if you want to take out Rasmussen, that's whatever. I think it's a legitimate pollster, but you want to say it leans conservative? Let's take a look at the five-way. Trump plus 2.7. Look at all these ties. But yeah, this is more accurate, honestly, on what it's going to be like, because you're going to have Kennedy, you're going to have West, you're going to have Stein. And I do think having everyone is in general is going to help Trump. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen the polls. This is turning into like a live stream. I don't know if you guys have seen the polls that RFK Jr. paid for. I think they're on 538, I want to say. I believe they're on 538. They're not on Real Clear Politics. I think RFK has to be pissed off about that. But these are pretty crazy polls. If you look at like president general election, maybe. I'm going to see if I can find them. Yeah, so you have to go state by state. Like, take a look at a state like Georgia, and you'll see how crazy this is. So Kennedy had these polls done by this pollster, and it's interesting because he made the argument in a YouTube video that Biden is actually the spoiler. Because in a head-to-head matchup, Kennedy versus Biden, Kennedy wins every poll by, in terms of the swing states, by a ton. And then in a head-to-head matchup with Biden off, and it's just Kennedy versus Trump, it's very close. And obviously right now we would predict Trump to beat Biden relatively easily. But he had these polls done, and some of the polls were just crazy. I thought Georgia was one of the ones that had a crazy margin. I don't know if it was Arizona. Plus 18. Plus 18 over Biden in Arizona. And he even had Trump plus 7 over himself. What an interesting idea that is. There were some other interesting ones. Maybe if we can find a swing. Let's take a look at Ohio. See how Kennedy does in Ohio. Plus 21 against Biden. And he's down by 8 to Trump. They're interesting polls to look at. I'm kind of sad they got left off Real Clear Politics, but I guess they were sponsored by RFK. I mean, you're going to try and make it realistic, but it is kind of funny to see something like that. Look at all these polls from March. This is in Ohio. They did a Gavin Newsom versus Trump. Wow, Kamala Harris was outperforming Gavin Newsom. I really think Gavin Newsom is an overrated politician. He really is. But guys, that's just the situation regarding this map. I think this is a level-headed prediction. You could even say maybe I'm being tough on Trump, but that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.